Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to go over observational drawing. Now, hopefully by now you've watched the video that was in step one. Okay. I find this video fantastic, comes up with a lot of great tips. Although it's geared for little kids, okay, meaning elementary students, I feel that older students can actually get a lot out of this too. Okay. So I want to kind of go over a few bit of tips before I kind of show you what I'm looking for when you're actually going through the steps and you're actually creating your artwork, okay? Now, each grade is going to be focusing on a little bit different things, okay? So first off, sixth grade is going to be working on still lifes, okay? So when you create your project, you are going to be making sure that you're doing it for a still life. A still life is a group of inanimate objects. What is an inanimate object? It means that they don't move, okay? It's a collection of things. Seventh and eighth grade are going to be doing a little bit different. Seventh grade is going to be doing landscapes and architecture, stuff that's outside, okay? Where eighth grade is going to work on portraits and figures, okay? Now, all of these tips that I'm going to go over can be applied to all these other subjects, okay? So first one I want to go over is draw what you see and not what you think you see. So what does that mean? A lot of times what happens is that people will draw something, okay? And I'll ask them, did you really look at that? And they're like, oh, yeah, I did. And I'm like, I don't think so, okay? You really got to draw what you see in front of you, even if it's a little wonky, okay? It's all right. Because once you add in shading and you add in color, that's when it really comes out, okay? Light to dark. You want to draw lightly and then go toward dark, okay? A lot of times what happens if you draw really heavy with a heavy hand, okay, and then you try to erase, you get what's called, I call them ghost lines, okay? So if you start off really light and then add the pressure on, almost like you're building, then you're going to be able to actually fix mistakes in the beginning and then gradually build darker and darker. Eye bounce check. This is when you're looking at something and you keep going back and forth and checking, okay, to see if you have it right. Now, a lot of times people will just stare at something and then they'll go down and they'll draw, but they'll forget to look back up, okay? That's what that bounce is. It's when you bounce up from your paper back up to the thing that you're looking at, okay? Now, how I'm going to show you on how I want you to draw is by mapping it out, adding the outline or the contours, okay, the outside lines, and then finishing details, all right? A lot of times people just want to jump straight into that outline and then the finishing details, but honestly, you need to really map it out and place things on your paper. This actually helps with making how do I put it? The best way is not making mistakes, basically, okay? And other things you got to focus on is foreground, middle ground, and background. These are the things that are kind of like make it feel like it's three-dimensional, that goes back in space. Now, all of the things with a still life, a landscape, architecture, we have portrait, and figures. Those three areas definitely help with an actual picture, okay? All right, so we're going to change a little gears, all right? I'm going to change the view of the camera, and we're going to check out my hands, and then we're going to see what I'm talking about for each one of these steps, the map, the outline, and the finishing details. Okay, so you should be on a new page in your sketchbook, all right? At the top, I would like you to write observational drawing, okay? There are a few notes that I would like you to take, okay? Then I'm going to kind of show you how to go about practicing your drawing, and then I'm going to have you go ahead and practice on your own, okay? So a couple of notes, make sure I can get into the view, all right, is I want you to write eye bounce, okay? Next is light to dark, okay? And then I want you to write for, comma, mid, comma, background. Then back, I'll put dash, ground, okay? Tell you why that's important. So in this video, all right, we're gonna focus on a still life, all right? So a still life, make sure you guys can see this, okay, are objects that are inanimate, okay, kind of arranged in a way that looks, pleasing. A couple. Now, as we can see, all right, foreground, midground, background, all of these seem to have them, okay? Foreground are things up close, midground are things a little further, background, that's the stuff that's farther away. Okay, all right. So today what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of get the idea of how we're gonna get to that point, okay? So when we draw, you need to remember that we're gonna start light to dark. What does light to dark mean? It means we're gonna sketch lightly, so if we make a mistake, we can erase it. If not, if you draw too dark, get what's called, I call it at least, a ghost line, all right? You can't erase that. It's so ingrained into the paper, a little hard, all right? And something that you're gonna worry about is bouncing back and forth your eyes, okay? So that means looking at something and not looking at something, all right? Okay, next set of notes. As I clear my throat, sorry guys. So first one we're gonna do is we're gonna map. Then we're gonna worry about the contour. Okay, and then we're gonna do the finishing details. Finish details. Now, by the way, these finishing details deal with cleanup, okay, fine details, okay, and then color or shade, okay? So when we're drawing things, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine as if things have like shapes in them, okay? So for example, let me grab something. Here we are. Grab two small little things that I have around the corner, okay? I got this pyramid, a student of mine gave it to me, and I have this itty bitty little raccoon, okay? So I'm gonna kind of go through and how does that work here? Okay, so mapping out. So we're gonna map out this guy, okay? Now, observational drawing means you're looking at it, that it's physically in front of you, okay? Now, if for example, let's see, it's not, okay? And you have it through a picture. That's fine too, okay? That goes into just drawing, which is fine, okay? But for here, I'd like it to be kind of in front of you. So when you kind of set up a still life, I'm gonna explain what you can do to set up a still life. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna map this out. Mapping out means to lightly sketch out basic shapes, okay? And where this is. Now you don't have to draw this, you just have to follow along, okay? And you're like, well, that doesn't look like much. No, it doesn't, but it tells me how big I'm drawing, okay? And where my boundaries might be. Next, contours. Contours are the sides, the outer lines, okay? That's when we go in and we start fixing things up. And we start cleaning up these little lines, okay? So I see I got some little lines out here, okay? Notice that this was curved. It's okay. All I knew is that I needed to come out in these spaces. That was it. Now I'm gonna map out. Now, by the way, you can go back and forth with this, okay? So I'm gonna map this out. Put this down the center, all right? Because it's right in the middle. And that's gonna help me figure out some stuff. All right. My chimes. So all of a sudden, you start seeing how things are starting to develop, okay? I'm gonna put in some of his hair. Now, may not look exactly like it, okay? But it's pretty darn close. Okay, outlines. Outlines might be the outline of the actual object, or it might be these major lines, okay? All right. Here, and then he's got kind of like his tail here. His feet, all I see is kind of these little, little toes. Oh my heavens, all right. All right, this other little back leg. All right, now that's kind of like the contour. Those are the edges. So if this was a cartoon, that's what I'm talking about, those main lines, all right? Now, let's say, for example, there are other things behind this, all right? I would map out those objects as well. If you had fabric behind it, I would put, you know, the main folds in here too, to kind of say, oh, there is something here, okay? And then I would start putting in the details. Last is finish details. That's when you go in and you clean up all these little light lines and you start adding in your details, okay? So if you have shading or coloring, that's what you do there. Clean it up. Add in any kind of small details, like I didn't even put in some of this fur, all right? On this tail, it's kind of really dark. All right. So you go in, you add all those little details. He's got a little shading in here. He's got a little dark here. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for when you're mapping things out. Okay. Now, making things 3D. All right. So when we look at objects, sometimes they're a little different. All right. Now we know that this is, you know, it's a pyramid, okay? But when we draw them, I want you to draw it exactly the way you see it, even if it's a little funky, okay? So here, I see that's an angle, okay? I see it goes back, okay? Draw what you see, not what you think you see. That means draw exactly how you see it. If it looks like the line's coming a little lower, draw it. If the one line looks like it's going on an angle, put it that way on the paper. If it looks a little funky in your drawing, that means something's a little off. You gotta go back and look at it, okay? Same thing, map it out. Do the contours, okay? Do your finishing details and add them. All right, so what I'm gonna ask you to do. Oh, and by the way, if you're ever drawing something from an actual picture, so let's try to pick a clear picture, there we go, okay? Map it out. Put the lines and the shapes that you see in the certain spots, okay? Then do the do the contour. Then you're going in and adding those details, kind of like a cartoon, okay? Last, clean up and then add those fine details. So fine detail might be the petal curves and stuff like that, okay? If there was design on here, that would be a fine detail. Here on this mug, that would be a fine detail, okay? All right, so what I want you to do is, for practice, grab a couple of objects, and I want you in this space to practice just drawing, okay? Going through these steps. Then when you're done, you're gonna upload this into Seesaw, okay? If you end up using more than one page, that's okay. You can add another slide in Seesaw. And that is it.